With 5.3, we're finally getting the Pyro Archon Mawika, who has a very flexible kit in regards to playstyle options. While everyone is rightfully excited for her badass motorcycle attacks, I want to focus a lot more on her off-fielding potential, and since it'll be the main topic of discussion, I thought it would also be important to include Pyro Traveler, since their abilities have a lot of off-fielding potential as well. In this video, we're going to talk about what these two characters do, and what new or interesting archetypes they bring to the table. We're going to talk a lot about teams in the second half, so I want to preface this. Not every team idea or synergy I bring up is going to be meta-related. Sometimes I'll bring it up because they have quality of life or comfort-related bonuses. Other times it might just be a fun idea that popped into my mind. Additional disclaimers, timestamps, social media links, and music credits are all down below. Without further ado, let's begin. Starting off with Mawika's kit overview, her skill causes her to enter Night Soul stance, and she'll have different effects based on tapping or holding the skill. Tapping it allows her to deal off-field pyro damage every 2 seconds, and this applies pyro every time. Holding the skill enters a motorcycle state, and she can attack enemies as an on-fielder. What's more, you can swap between these two effects when you tap your skill again. This mechanic allows Mawika to function as either an on-fielder or an off-fielder, and you have the freedom to actively change that playstyle based on your team or circumstances. And not to toot my own horn, but I did predict this playstyle mechanic being a thing all the way back in my Pyro Archon kit concepts. If you haven't seen it yet, I recommend checking it out. There's a lot of other cool ideas I had that Mawika herself doesn't have or didn't explore in her kit. When it comes to her burst, it doesn't use an energy mechanic at all. Instead, she works like Acheron or Feixiao from Star Rail, where you gather burst points a different way. Teammates that consume Night Soul points or hit enemies with normal attacks will be what charges her fighting spirit. She can hold up to 200 points, but she can activate her burst at 100. Once she activates her burst, she consumes all points and deals a massive hit of damage. Each point of fighting spirit consumed further increases that base damage based on her attack stat. Afterwards, she gains 10 Night Soul points, and she will not consume any points for 7 seconds. In this window, her normal and charge attacks get a base damage bonus scaling with her attack stat. So it's kind of like Raiden's burst, where you activate it, deal a hit of damage, have a short window for higher damage output, and you can charge up special points to further boost that damage output. With her A1, Mawika gains 30% attack for 10 seconds after Night Soul Burst is triggered. With her A4, after using her burst, she grants the active character a damage bonus based on how many fighting spirit points were consumed. This maxes out at a 40% damage bonus. It also depletes over the course of 20 seconds. Yelan's A4 passive grants an increasing damage bonus over the course of its duration, so Mawika's is basically the reverse of that. And since I really enjoy making analogies, you can think of her bonus as like a candle. The wax is both your damage bonus and your timer. As it melts away, your power level also goes down. And once the wax is gone, the flame goes out. For Pyro Traveler, their kit is a lot more straightforward. When you use their skill, they gain Night Soul points. Tapping the skill causes them to deal pyro damage over time in an area around the active character. This occurs every 1 second, but can only apply pyro once every 3 seconds. If you hold their skill, they instead unleash coordinated pyro attacks every 3 seconds. Using their burst causes them to deal a large hit of pyro damage, and they'll generate more Night Soul points. This ability is a lot more relevant when it comes to uptime on their skill's pyro procs. For their A1, when Pyro MC has more than 20 Night Soul points, the AoE of their various skill hits is increased. And then for their A4, Pyro MC gains some energy, either when a party member triggers a pyro reaction, or when Night Soul Burst is triggered. So to summarize both of their kits, Mawika has the option to be an on-field or off-field DPS. This gives her a lot of flexibility in playstyle options. Meanwhile, Pyro Traveler is better suited as a pure off-field support. This can be in a more consistent but uncontrollable form through their tap skill, or in a controlled but less frequent manner through their hold skill. As the main topic of this video, we're going to be focusing on their potential on the off-fielding side of things. I know Mawika is generally viewed as more of an on-field DPS, but personally, there wasn't anything super interesting for me to talk about in that regard. Off-fielding Pyro is a lot more niche, so there's actually a lot more to discuss. Not including Mawika and Pyro MC, we have 4 Pyro units with off-fielding potential: Xiangling, Xinyan, Thoma, and Dia. All of them have their own pros and cons, and the same holds true for our new units. As I go down the comparisons, I'm going to be discussing the scenarios in which Mawika and Pyro MC serve as viable alternatives compared to the other units. When it comes to their comparisons, there's 2 main aspects I'm going to focus on: energy needs and application rate. Energy plays a big role when it comes to off-field application, because it can make or break the rotation's performance. Xiangling being a reliable applicator is only possible if she has enough energy to do so. Same with Toma and his Burgeon teams. Pyro MC's energy cost is 70, but this gets offset pretty easily through Cinder City and their A4 passive, which makes the actual cost somewhere around 55. You're still going to need to invest some energy recharge to assist in uptime, but not nearly as much as the former two. Finally, Malwika has absolutely no ER needs, and her application is centered around her skill, making her the comfiest character for off-field application in rotations. The other aspect is application rate. Malwika's rate is 2 seconds, Pyro MC's is 3 seconds, and for brevity's sake, let's just say Xiangling's is something like 1.2 seconds without doing any fancy techniques. Certain teams are going to perform better or worse based on your Pyro application rate. For example, in teams that can keep up with Xiangling's fast application, she can be very strong in Vaporize or Overload as the trigger. At the same time, it's super difficult, if not impossible, for her to work in teams like Forward Melt or Burgeon, since her application is too fast in those teams. But fast application makes her reliable as an applier for reactions, and someone else could be the trigger. Malwika is a middle ground for application. Unlike Xiangling, she can actually function in Forward Melt, since the rate is slow enough to open that window. At the same time, in cases where the intended trigger is much slower at applying their element, Malwika's application can still be fast enough to create an aura for the reaction. Finally, Pyro MC is among the slowest appliers for Pyro. This means they're not really going to be reliable in setting up auras, but they will be super reliable in triggering reactions. Applying auras will be more relevant for just Malwika and how well she can support your team, while triggering reactions will apply for both of our new units, since they have Cinder City synergies. I want to go down each Pyro reaction archetype and explore where Malwika and Pyro MC stand compared to others who have better specialties in those teams. Once again, these teams are focused purely on Malwika and Pyro MC's off-fielding teams. Nothing about Malwika's Dami Mami backbending bike slams will be explored here. Starting off with Reverse Vaporize, if Xiangling can be a reliable trigger, then Malwika and Pyro MC will definitely work here. Utilizing Cinder City grants Pyro and Hydro damage bonuses, making them useful in teams with the corresponding DPS units. In situations with a Pyro main DPS, Malwika might have some problems with accidentally consuming too much Hydro, but Pyro MC's application is very similar to Toma. Toma was considered a decent Pyro unit in the past because he doesn't eat up Hydro too frequently, so his utility with the Pyro Resonance and Shielding can be utilized without as many drawbacks. I still believe Xiangling's the best for this Reverse Vape team, purely because of the sheer speed and attack power her burst has when combined with Vaporize. But Malwika will still be good as a low energy option, and Pyro MC can trigger Vaporize more as a Cinder support, not DPS. Next up is Forward Vaporize. To be more specific, let's talk more about Mualani Forward Vape. Characters like Toma and Dia can support Mualani Vape through burning to help supplement Pyro auras, but this section wants to focus more on raw application abilities. Pyro MC is not going to be a strong option here due to their slow rate, which means you'll have to run the aforementioned Burn Vape team for them. Xiangling's application is viable here, but in Mualani Vape, her lack of a Pyro battery makes it hard for her to generate energy. Malwika's objectively going to be the new best Pyro unit here because she has a rate fast enough to set up Pyro auras, while also having the comfort of no ER, which provides smoother rotations. With her being the main applier in these teams, it means you can't always trigger the Cinder effect, and you'd likely have better luck with someone like Xilonen being the one holding that set. When it comes to regular Forward Vaporize, like with Neuvillette, you'll almost always need burning to be present because Malwika's application isn't fast enough to support that on her own. Reverse Melt is next. Xiangling's always been the premier unit for applying the aura, since it can keep up with cryo users. When it comes to specifically a Wriothesley Melt team, I'm not super sure how Malwika will fare in that regard. His attacks are pretty quick, so you might end up with Malwika forward melting instead, and so even here, burning might be needed to help supplement the Pyro aura. However, Malwika will definitely be a functional unit in something like Ganyu Melt. Based on TC information, it's going to run into some issues where her application is still a bit too slow for optimal Ganyu damage output, but if you're leaning towards comfort as a factor, she will be a good option here. With Malwika, her steady rate of Pyro application will be a lot easier to manage in a Ganyu team. You don't have to worry too much about managing a burning aura or giving Xiangling massive ER stats. Forward melting for Malwika is going to be much easier than Xiangling. A 2-second window on her skill actually lines up pretty well with units like Rosaria or Citlali, who also have 2-second intervals. As I mentioned above, Wriothesley might apply cryo faster than Malwika's skill hits, allowing her to melt those. This can work for Cinder City procs and personal damage, although it would mean Wriothesley's personal damage takes a dip. I think it works, but it just feels weird, since it's like 2 DPS units fighting over who gets the reaction. That's why I think Pyro MC is better suited for forward melting as a support. Their low application means they can easily trigger Melt and proc Cinder City, and they can support a different Pyro or Cryo unit through similar means as Vaporized teams. I tried an experimental Freeze Melt team, where Ayaka was still performing as a Freeze DPS. I used Toma as an example replacement for Pyro MC, and the results on application were pretty good. Freeze uptime remained high, and forward melts would be consistent for the damage bonus. Meta-wise, Anemo units are going to remain the better choice as the flex slot, but from a fun team building standpoint, Pyro MC in Freeze will be an interesting option you can try out. Fortunately, these next sections on the team rosters should be much faster since application isn't as technical as the Vape or Melt comps. In Overload, the two units have better synergy with acting as a trigger due to the incentive of Cinder City. Overload is generally a team in which the triggering units are mixed and matched, so it should be relatively easy to get them to trigger the reaction at least once per rotation, allowing you to boost your other teammates. Burning is actually one of the worser archetypes when we look at Cinder City. While their application is consistent, Burning relies on Dendro being applied a lot, because that's the element needed to maintain the aura. Pyro only needs to be applied once, and it also can't re-trigger Burning on a burning enemy. They can still function in these teams, but their application is very negligible here, and you'll likely only be able to get one Cinder City proc in the first rotation, but have a harder time in the future ones. Burgeon, on the other hand, comes with some pretty special synergies. With Cinder City, triggering Burgeon will buff the party's Dendro and Pyro damage. Mavuika's skill can target Bloom Cores, making her a viable unit for this team. Pyro MC, however, is actually going to be a better option, because their tap skill will pulse every 1 second. This also means every 1 second they can trigger Burgeon, which is just as consistent as Toma's burst. In a comparative sense, just think of Mavuika or Pyro MC as the offensive option for Burgeon teams, while Toma or even Dia are your defensive options. I also think it's pretty cool that this special synergy will be a nice bonus for Kniche Burning teams. Lately, Burning has always been more popular, since it was easier to stack up points through its A1 passive, but since Cinder City is more reliable on Burgeon than it is on Burning, it gives a special incentive for more players to try out the archetype. Alright, that's gonna do it for this character analysis video. Overall, I think both Mavuika and Pyro MC are gonna be very interesting additions to the Pyro roster's off-field meta. There are some teams where they're direct upgrades, some downgrades, and others where they're just side grades. Both of their kits have a lot of offensive utility for Cinder City, but they also work well as alternative options due to their various quality of life benefits, such as lower energy needs or comfortable playstyles. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and subscribing to support the channel. Let me know in the comments what teams you're interested in trying out with either Mavuika or Pyro MC. Thanks again for watching everyone, and I will see you all next time. Bye!